Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is my Forbes colleague, staff writer Zach Everson. Zach, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me back, Brittany.
We are talking about one of our familiar topics today, Donald Trump and his golf courses. You're writing for Forbes that Trump's golf courses keep pushing legal boundaries with presidential seal markers. So first and foremost, what's the federal law here surrounding the presidential seal?
It prohibits the use of the seal in any way that might imply government sponsorship. And we're seeing a lot of it we're now seeing it being used at a fifth Donald Trump golf course, which it does not appear that he has explicit permission from the government to use. Although I don't know, it's his government. Maybe they've just said, go ahead, do whatever you want. Seems like Congress is kind of cool with that these days.
You just said it now. Your headline indicates it, that this is not the first time this has happened, that the presidential seal marker has popped up on one of Donald Trump's golf courses. When are the other specific times? Where are these incidences? Tell us.
So back in 2018, when rules and laws were a little bit more important, the Trump organization had some of those markers out at their Palm Beach golf course, West Palm Beach golf course near Mar-a-Lago. ProPublica, WNYC reported on it. And then the Trump organization, can't imagine how I confused those two, took them off and said, oh, sorry, they were a gift from somebody. Didn't appear to be the case because ProPublica and WNYC had a receipt that showed that they were paid for by the Trump organization. So they had disappeared from Trump properties for a while, but then they started to come back. In 2021, I found golf markers at some other Trump properties. There have been two in Florida, one in New Jersey, and one in New York City in the Bronx. It's no longer a Trump property, but that also had Trump golf markers. So all told, we've seen it 5 different Trump properties that we've seen those presidential seal being used as golf markers.
I know you said in 2018 they came down after that ProPublica investigation, but in 2021, aside from January, he was not president. So does it really matter if you're president or not when these markers crop up? Or is it, hey, you're not allowed to have these at all?
The law doesn't seem to care whether you're having it, whether he's president or whether I was to display them, at my yard sale next week. You're not allowed to do that to imply, endorsed that you're being endorsed by the United States government in any way. So it doesn't appear to matter whether he's president or not.
I know that the receipt said that it appeared that the Trump organization bought it, but where are they getting these from? Is it the White House? I mean, you can't order the presidential seal, an official one, on Amazon, I presume.
I don't know. You can get anything on Amazon. I'll have to check that after we get off. But in this case, I believe it was a company. For the first example, from the one in 2018, it was from a company out in Indiana. I think it was kind of near the Louisville, Kentucky area. I haven't seen any evidence recently if that's still the company that's manufacturing them or if they've gone elsewhere. We're finding the proof of this from social media posts. You can just go through looking at posts that are geotagged to these properties, and it makes a nice photo to have that presidential seal with the grass laid around it and to say, oh, look what I'm doing. So it's easy to find on social media.
You made a slip in this conversation, and it leads me to my next point. You flubbed Trump organization and Trump administration, and you caught yourself, though, and I think that's a really important point because you and I have been talking about for years, you have been reporting on years, kind of the murky lines between Donald Trump, the politician, and Donald Trump, the businessman, the Trump organization, and politics. So where are the lines here? Were they crossed? And what has the Trump organization, what has Donald Trump, the president, said about this?
They did not get back to me when I've reached out to them. I reached out to the golf courses every time I've found these. They've never commented on it. It's just you're seeing it creep. Whereas before there was some sort of semblance of at least lip service that they were separating the administration and the organization. They really don't care anymore. One of the other things we've talked about was merchandise. When Trump was first elected in 2016, he didn't have a retail website up there. A couple years in, they launched the trumpstore.org, but at first it was just golf stuff. There was nothing on there at all that referenced the White House or his daytime gig as president. But slowly you started seeing some merchandise on there. They introduced a set of soaps that was pegged to his hotel here in DC that's since closed, but it had the White House on there. Now, I reported that, and all of a sudden that soap wrapper disappeared. So you would get a set of soap that had 3 bars, one missing the wrapper. they just don't care anymore. When he won re-election, they were out there immediately with the 45-47 collection, honoring his historic presidency. You go to trumpstore.org, there's all sorts of MAGA stuff out there. Why should they care? There was no pushback. The American public don't seem to really care about it. Democrats don't have any authority in Congress. Republicans don't care. They seem to love going to these places. We've seen substantial amount of members of Congress have already showed up since his reelection. There's just, sadly, other than feeling good about following the law, code of ethics, norms, there's why not? And that's what we're seeing right now. That's what we've descended into.
I guess my final question to you would be, who would be the person to enforce this, since he is the president and they're cropping up on the Trump organization's properties? So who would be the person to enforce this?
I don't know. There are very few federal law enforcement agencies out there that do not fall under the purview of the executive branch. I believe you have the Postal Service officers, but it sounds like they might be part of the executive branch soon. The Supreme Court has its own body. You've got the Capitol Hill Police. There just aren't many law enforcement. That's one of the major things we're seeing throughout Trump. Like, he's getting these court rulings against him, but who's there to enforce it? We saw one the other day where the court, they didn't rule he was in contempt. They just said, oh yes, he's violating the rule and we're angry about it. All right, great. There's nothing in his history that makes it think, oh, he's going to walk that back. If a law is not enforced and it's not enforced quickly and the sanctions for violating it aren't significant, there's really no incentive for Donald Trump to follow it. And he's shown a willingness to not follow them in all sorts of areas. So not surprising at all that, he wouldn't care whatsoever what the law says about using the presidential seal as golf markers.
Well, Zach, I appreciate the conversation per usual. Thanks so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Sorry for being such a nihilist.